My name is Sienna Carver, 29 years old. If you'd walked into my condo on a Friday night 3 months ago, you probably would have said my life looked stable. The kitchen was always clean, the couch always had a neatly folded blanket on it, the shoes lined up by the door were mostly mine. I bought this place 3 years ago, after grinding my way through my 20s. And for a while, it felt like proof that I'd done something right. Then Evan moved in. We'd been together for 3 years, living together for the last one. At first, things were easy enough. He was charming, funny, a little messy, but not disastrously so. I paid the mortgage and most of the bills. He covered what he could with his part-time job and vague business ideas, always in development. I convinced myself that was fine, that we were building a life together, that his inconsistencies were temporary. Then, about 3 months ago, his weekends started getting fuzzy. It started small, a guy's night here, an after-work hang there, but the stories never quite lined up. He got home later and later. He started buying new clothes despite claiming he was broke. He wore cologne to just hang with the guys. His phone suddenly had a permanent downward tilt when he was texting. On that particular Friday, he came out of the bedroom in a shirt I'd never seen before, slim fit, deep blue that made his eyes pop, and jeans that still had a faint fold line from the store. He'd shaved, styled his hair, and sprayed so much cologne, the scent followed him like a fog. It was nearly 9 p.m. I sat on the couch with my laptop half open, pretending to scroll through emails while watching him from the corner of my eye. "Where are you headed?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. He spun slightly, grabbed his watch from the counter. "Out." "With who?" I asked. He frowned like I'd just demanded his tax returns. "Friends." "Which ones?" I pressed gently. He snapped his head toward me. "Why are you keeping tabs on me now?" I closed the laptop slowly. "I'm literally asking where my boyfriend is going on a Friday night dressed like that. That's not keeping tabs. That's baseline conversation." He scoffed and grabbed his wallet. "God, you're so controlling lately." Controlling. Interesting word choice. "I'm controlling," I repeated, "for asking where you're going." "There it is," he said, pointing a finger at me, eyes narrowing. "Your attitude. I'm so sick of it." He snatched the designer bag off the chair. Ironically, one I'd bought him for his birthday. "You know what? I'm done with this. Change your attitude or we're done. I'm not dealing with your jealousy anymore." There it was, the ultimatum. For a second, the old version of me, the one who bent over backwards to keep the peace, wanted to scramble, to backtrack, to apologize for daring to be uncomfortable, to beg. Instead, something inside me went quiet. I looked at him, really looked at him. The defensiveness, the anger over a simple question, the new clothes, the late nights, the flinching when his phone lit up. All the puzzle pieces lined up so clearly I felt stupid for pretending they didn't fit before. "I choose done," I said. He blinked. "What?" "You said change your attitude or we're done," I replied calmly. "I choose done. We're done." "You can't be serious." "Dead serious," I said. "Have fun with your friends." Silence stretched between us, like a wire pulled too tight. His mouth opened and closed. He expected a fight, expected tears, expected bargaining. Instead, I picked up my laptop and set it on the coffee table. "Fine," he snapped finally, grabbing his keys. "Don't come crying to me later." He slammed the door and was gone. I sat there for a moment, staring at the door, feeling my heartbeat slowly return to normal. Then I reached for the device tucked into the side pocket of the couch, our shared tablet. Well, his and mine. But I was the one who'd bought it. I was also the one who'd set up the Find My Device feature that he'd agreed to when we synced his phone. I opened the location tracking app I'd installed a week earlier. A map popped up, a little dot representing him slowly moved down familiar streets. I'd been watching it for days now. Every guy's night, every late work session, every "you're being paranoid, Sienna." They all ended at the same address. I zoomed in. There it was again. Same building, same street, same unit marker. I didn't need to guess whose place it was, I already knew. He'd mentioned her a few times, a coworker. Just a friend. She needed help with projects. She didn't have many people she trusted. Apparently, she trusted him from Friday night through Saturday morning, every weekend, for 3 months. I took a slow breath, put the tablet down, and stood up. There's a strange calm that settles over you when you finally stop arguing with reality. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to show up and throw things. I was going to be efficient. It took me about an hour to pack his life into neat categories. Clothes first. All the shirts, pants, jackets, and hoodies I'd washed, folded and put away more times than I could count. His shoes, carefully lined up by the door, now stacked into boxes. The watches, cologne bottles, and jewelry he liked to leave scattered across every surface. The designer bags and accessories I'd bought him on birthdays and anniversaries when I still believed we were heading toward something. 3 suitcases, 4 boxes, 1 fully detachable man. I loaded everything into the back of my SUV. Before I closed the trunk, I paused and took a photo. Date, time, contents. Not because I planned to post it, but because I knew how people like Evan reacted when consequences showed up. Documentation is underrated. I grabbed the tablet, checked the address again, and started driving. 20 minutes later, I pulled into a decent-looking apartment complex. Not luxury, but nice. I spotted his car almost immediately in visitor parking. I parked a little distance away, rolled my shoulders, then snapped a second photo. His license plate, the building sign, the timestamp glinting in my screen's corner. Inside, there was a security desk instead of a full doorman, but the effect was similar. A man in a navy blazer looked up. "Evening, can I help you?" "Yeah," I said. "I'm dropping off some belongings for a resident. He left these at my place." "Name?" the guard asked. "Evan Cole," I answered. "He's visiting someone in 304. The guard glanced at the screen. "We do have a 304. Want me to call up?" "I've got it," I said, lifting my phone. I stepped to the side and dialed. He answered on the second ring, music muffled in the background, and a woman's laugh bleeding through before the sound shifted. "What?" he snapped. "Hey," I said calmly. "I am downstairs at your friend's place. I have some of your stuff. Want to come get it, or should I leave it with security?" Silence. Then, "What are you talking about?" "I'm at the address where you've been spending your weekends," I said. "Got your stuff. 3 suitcases, 4 boxes, everything designer you own. Figured since you're staying here so much, I'd bring it all." More silence. I could almost hear his brain scrambling. I don't know what you're talking about." "Apartment 304, I said. That's where I am. Your car's in the parking lot. Saw it when I pulled in, so either come get your things or I'm leaving them here." I hung up before he could respond. 3 minutes later, the elevator dinged. He rushed out into the lobby, wearing sweatpants and a hoodie, hair messy, no charm left to hide behind. Behind him, standing just inside the elevator, with wide eyes and a frozen smile, was a woman I recognized from his social media tags and offhand stories. His coworker. "Just a friend." "What the hell are you doing?" he demanded, walking toward the pile of luggage. "Bringing you your stuff," I said. "We're done, remember? Your choice." "You can't just show up here," he hissed, glancing nervously at the security guard. "Why not?" I asked. "You're here." His coworker stepped forward slightly, concern and discomfort battling on her face. "Is everything okay?" "We're fine," he said quickly, then snapped at me. "You're being insane." "I'm embarrassing you?" I asked, quiet but sharp. "You've been spending weekends here while living in my condo. I'm pretty sure that's the embarrassing part." The guard very obviously pretended to look at his monitor, doing a terrible job of hiding his interest. Evan dropped his voice. "You've been tracking me? That's illegal." "Tracking our shared tablet that you carry everywhere?" I replied. "Pretty sure it's legal. You agreed to the Find My Device feature, remember?" His coworker bit her lip. "Maybe we should talk about this privately." "Nothing private about it anymore," I said. "Here's his stuff. He's all yours." I turned, started walking toward the doors. "Sienna, wait," he called, footsteps following. "You can't just leave like this." "Watch me," I said over my shoulder. "You don't understand," he insisted. "It's not what you think." "Really?" I paused at the door and looked back. "What is it then?" "We're just friends," he said, gesturing helplessly toward the coworker. She was helping me with work stuff. "At 11 p.m. every Friday," I said, in sweatpants, at her apartment. He flinched. "You're being ridiculous." I smiled, just a little. "No, I'm being single. Feels great, actually." I pushed open the door, stepped out into the cool night air, and let it close behind me. By the time I got back to my condo, I'd already blocked his number. I pulled up my building app and submitted a request to change my locks. $200 and a late-night locksmith visit later, the door clicked with a new code. I crawled into bed, the space beside me finally, beautifully empty. For the first time in months, I slept straight through the night. By Sunday afternoon, the high of finally being done started to fade and a quieter feeling settled in. Something between relief and the ache you get after a workout you weren't ready for. I padded around my condo in an old t-shirt and leggings, made coffee, opened the curtains. For the first time in a long time, the silence didn't feel threatening. It felt open. That lasted until my doorbell rang. I checked the peephole. It wasn't Evan. It was his best friend, Tori. She stood there with a messy bun, oversized hoodie, and the expression of someone who'd been rehearsing a speech the whole drive over. I opened the door but didn't move aside. "Hey, we need to talk," she said without preamble. "Sienna, what happened? He is a wreck." "He's always a wreck," I said. "He just has to live in it now instead of leaving it at my place." She huffed. "You're overreacting. It's not what you think." I leaned my shoulder against the doorframe. "You mean it's not him spending every Friday and Saturday night at another woman's apartment for months while lying to my face about where he is? Because that's exactly what I think it is." Tori rolled her eyes. "You're really going to throw away 3 years over a misunderstanding?" "There was nothing miss about it," I said. "He spent his weekends at her place. He lied about it. He got defensive when I asked basic questions, then he gave me an ultimatum. That's not a misunderstanding, that's a decision on his part." She hesitated. "He says nothing happened. They're just friends. She was helping him with work stuff." "At 11 at night?" I asked. "In her apartment? Every weekend? While he lived with me?" Tori's mouth opened, then closed. She didn't have an answer for that. "He's devastated," she tried again. "He's been crying for 2 days. He won't eat, he won't sleep." "Cool," I said. "Not my problem anymore." "You're being cruel," she snapped. "I'm being realistic," I replied. "He got caught. Now he's dealing with it. That's not cruelty. That's cause and effect." She stared at me, searching for the version of me who might crumble the way he'd promised her I would. "She wasn't cheating," Tori insisted weakly, catching herself and flushing. "I mean, he wasn't." "Then why lie?" I asked softly. "Why hide where he was? Why give ultimatums instead of explanations?" She swallowed, glanced away, then muttered, "You just don't understand." "I understand perfectly," I said. "You're just not used to seeing me enforce boundaries." I closed the door gently but firmly. She didn't knock again. That evening, my phone rang with a new number flashing across the screen. I almost declined it, but curiosity got the better of me. "Hello? Sienna, this is Evan's mom." Of course it was. I sighed. "Hi, Ms. Cole. You need to fix this with my son," she said, skipping right past courtesy. Her voice was sharp, brittle, like she'd been crying but was determined not to show it. "No, I don't," I said. "He made a mistake," she snapped. "Everyone makes mistakes. You can't just throw him out like garbage." "Sleeping at another woman's place every weekend for 3 months is not a mistake," I replied. "That's a pattern. He made the same choice over and over." "He loves you," she insisted. "He told me you two were talking about marriage. You're throwing away a good man because you're jealous." The word made my stomach twist, not because it was true, but because it was so absurd it almost made me laugh. "I'm not jealous," I said calmly. "I'm done. I'm walking away from someone who lied repeatedly and treated me like I wouldn't notice. That's called self-respect." "He's staying with us now," she went on, ignoring me. "He's miserable, crying constantly. He feels like his life is over." "He has a perfectly good apartment to stay in," I replied. "Apartment 304, with his coworker. He certainly seemed to enjoy it when he thought I didn't know." She gasped softly. "You're being vindictive." "I delivered all his things to where he was spending his time," I said. "That's not vindictive, that's efficient and honest." She tried guilt-tripping me for another 10 minutes. How I was punishing her family, how I wasn't the girl she thought I was, how real women work through issues instead of walking away. "Real men don't give ultimatums after months of lying," I said eventually. "We're clearly not talking about the same standard." She didn't like that. I ended the call before she could escalate. By Monday, the emotional campaign shifted. I'd already blocked Evan's number after my little field trip to apartment 304, but phones are cheap and desperation makes people inventive. An unknown number pinged me mid-morning. "This is Evan. Please, we need to talk. I can explain everything." I stared at the text for a second, then typed back. "You already explained everything when you said, 'Change your attitude' or 'We're done.'" I agreed. "We're done." He replied instantly. "I didn't mean it. I was just upset." "You meant it enough to pack a bag and spend the night at her place. Again." Nothing happened. We really are just friends. I felt my jaw clench as I typed. Friends don't give ultimatums to their partners, then spend every weekend at another person's apartment. That's what couples do. "You're being ridiculous." "I'm being single. It feels great, actually." He tried calling. Blocked. Thursday, he tried a new route, an email. The subject line read, "Please just hear me out." The body of the email was long, rambling, full of half-truths and revisionist history. He wrote about how I'd been suffocating him, how he needed space, how his coworker was helping him on a business project and they just clicked, how I'd overreacted because I didn't trust him. I replied once, "You wanted out, you got out. Enjoy your space. Don't contact me again." Friday, almost exactly 1 week after the lobby scene, my phone vibrated with another unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. "Hey, Sienna, this is Mark. I work with Evan." A short pause. "Look, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Nothing happened between him and," a slight hesitation, "her. He said you thought they were together, but it's not like that. He just needed a place to crash sometimes because you two were fighting." I stared at the notification, then hit call back. He sounded surprised when he picked up. "Hello? Mark, it's Sienna," I said. "You said there's been a misunderstanding?" "Yeah," he said quickly. "Look, he's really messed up over this. They're just friends." "We weren't fighting," I cut in. "We started fighting when I noticed my boyfriend spending every Friday and Saturday night at his coworker's apartment and lying about it. Funny how that works." "He wasn't lying," Mark insisted weakly. "It's complicated." "It's not complicated," I said. "He was staying at her place every weekend for 3 months while living with me. That's not complicated. That's cheating, or at absolute best, emotional betrayal." "He cares about you," Mark tried again. He cared more about not getting caught," I said. "He cared enough to give me an ultimatum instead of a conversation." Silence. "Look," I said, my voice gentler now, because I suddenly realized something. This wasn't about Mark. He'd been dragged into a story he didn't fully understand. You can believe whatever he told you. That's your business. But I'm not going back. I'm not confused. I watched the pattern for weeks before I said anything. I'm not reacting to one night. I'm responding to 3 months of choices. He exhaled. "So that's it?" "That's it," I said. "He's single, I'm single, problem solved." I hung up and blocked that number too. The thing that amazed me wasn't that Evan lied. I'd seen the signs. What amazed me was how utterly convinced he and everyone around him were that if they just said, "We're just friends," enough times, I'd gaslight myself into believing it. They thought I'd rather doubt my own eyes, my own instincts, my own self-respect, than accept the truth. They were wrong. And every new call, every new message, every new attempt to twist the narrative only made one thing clearer. I hadn't overreacted. I'd finally reacted. The second week after the breakup was when Evan's persistence started curdling into obsession. It wasn't explosive. It wasn't dramatic. It was slow, invasive, relentless, like someone dripping water onto the same spot over and over until the surface cracks. I woke up Monday to a loud envelope sliding under my front door. Thick, official looking. For half a second, I wondered if it was something genuinely important. Jury duty, taxes, something routine. It wasn't. It was 5 handwritten pages from Evan. His handwriting was rushed, slanted, like his thoughts were tripping over themselves faster than he could write. The letter opened with, "I'm sorry, I messed up. You misunderstood everything." I sat on the couch, coffee in hand, and read the entire thing. Every paragraph contradicted the last. He insisted it was innocent. He insisted she was gay. He insisted she had nowhere else to work. He insisted I'd pushed him away. He insisted he only stayed at her place because we needed space. He insisted he needed space because I kept questioning everything. And then the kicker. I never meant the ultimatum. You forced my hand. There it was again, rewriting history in real time. When I finished, I stared at the pages spread across my coffee table. His narrative bent so far from reality, it practically formed a Mobius strip. Each sentence was a half apology, balancing on top of an excuse. I folded the letter neatly and put it in a drawer where things go to die. That same afternoon, the last family member I hadn't blocked called. Her number flashed on my screen. Evan's dad. I debated answering, but curiosity won again. "Sienna," he said, voice deep, gravelly, already laced with disappointment. "We need to talk." I leaned back against my counter. "About what?" "My daughter is heartbroken." I blinked. "Your daughter?" He exhaled sharply. "Sorry. Habit. My son is heartbroken. He's a wreck. You have to understand. He made a mistake." "Multiple mistakes," I corrected, "for 3 months straight." "He thought you'd forgive him," he said. "He thought you'd understand." "Understand what?" I asked. "That he lied about where he was every weekend? That he stayed overnight at another woman's apartment dozens of times? That he gave me an ultimatum instead of honesty?" "He's not a bad man," his father insisted. "He's confused." I let out a quiet laugh. "He's not confused. He's entitled." A pause, just long enough for the truth to sting. You're being stubborn, he said. You're punishing him. Punishing? I repeated softly. No, punishment is inflicted. Consequences are earned. This is the latter. You don't have to be cruel. I stared out the window at people walking their dogs, sipping lattes, living peacefully. It felt like watching a world I'd finally stepped back into. I'm not being cruel, I said. I'm choosing myself. That's something your son has never had to confront. He didn't respond, and when he finally did, the anger crept in. You'll regret this. He loves you. Loving someone doesn't mean disrespecting them, I said, and it doesn't erase evidence. I hung up and blocked the number. That evening, around 7, my phone buzzed again, from the building management office. I answered immediately. This is Sienna. Hi, Ms. Carver, the manager said, sounding exhausted. Your ex is down here again. I closed my eyes. What is he saying now? He insists he's still on your lease, the manager said. He's demanding a key. A humorless laugh escaped me. He's never been on the lease. Ever. Check the system. We did, the manager said dryly. He's listed nowhere. He tried to argue established residency but couldn't provide proof. Of course he couldn't. He didn't pay rent. He didn't pay utilities. He didn't pay for anything except maybe the occasional impulse snack run. He also claims you have his property, the manager added. I delivered all his belongings 2 weeks ago, I replied. I even photographed everything, loading it into my car, arriving at the apartment complex, his car in the lot, the timestamp, the drop-off. And I called him from the lobby. The manager paused. Do you have those photos? Do you want them? I'd love them, he said, just in case he tries something creative. I emailed the photos immediately. The manager exhaled into the phone, a weary sound. Ms. Carver, you're very organized. It's impressive. When you date someone like Evan, I said, documentation becomes second nature. He chuckled. We'll keep a note. If he returns, we're calling the police. I hung up and sat at my dining table, staring at the darkening sky through the window. He wasn't stopping. He was escalating. By Wednesday, he tried showing up at my workplace. Security called my desk. Hi, Sienna. There's a man downstairs asking for you. Says it's urgent. No, I said instantly. Don't let him up. He's not allowed on the property. I walked to the lobby balcony again, just like last time, and watched him below, pacing, pleading, growing frustrated. Security stood firm. 10 minutes later, he left. I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt tired. That night, one more attempt came through, this time from his best friend again. A voicemail. Sienna, she's planning to go to your condo tonight. She just wants closure. Just talk to her. He still couldn't acknowledge I was the one wronged. Closure. People toss that word around like it's a gift you owe someone who hurt you. I called the front desk. Hi, I said. It's Sienna in 1708. My ex may attempt to come into the building tonight. She is not authorized. Please do not let her in under any circumstances. Already noted, they said. We're ready. Sure enough, around 9, the building manager called again. She's here, he said calmly. We told her no. She's threatening to call the police. She doesn't live here, I said. She has no right to access. That's what we told her. 5 minutes later, a text came through from a number I didn't recognize. They won't let me up, please. 5 minutes, that's all I'm asking. I typed back. No, I have stuff in the apartment. I brought everything to you 2 weeks ago. You were there. I forgot things. Not my problem. You're being petty. I'm being done, like you wanted. Another number, another call, another message, another desperate attempt. I blocked them all. By the weekend, the final escalation arrived. A call from Mark, the coworker, again. This time from his number. He sounded drained, defeated. Look, Sienna, she's staying at my place. She has nowhere else to go. Can you please just talk to her? I exhaled slowly. Why is she staying with you if nothing happened? Because she has nowhere else, he repeated, voice thinning. She has friends. She has parents. She chose you, I said. That's her choice, not mine. It's not like that, he insisted again. You've said that a lot, I said. Nobody believes you anymore. Then he snapped. I'm gay! I paused. So she told me in her letter, after she was caught spending 3 months' worth of weekends at your apartment. It's the truth. Then why didn't she say that 3 months ago? I asked softly. Why lie to me? Why let her come over every weekend? Why let me confront you in the lobby without correcting her? Silence. Exactly. You're both liars, I said gently. Figure it out together. And I blocked him too. It wasn't anger, it wasn't revenge, it was clarity. Boundaries aren't walls, they're doors. And I'd finally closed mine. By the 3rd week, the noise began to die down, not because Evan finally accepted the breakup, but because consequences had started cornering him from every direction. Desperation has a volume, and his was getting quieter in the way desperation gets when someone is running out of people to manipulate. I didn't hear from him for a few days. Not through burner numbers, not through friends, not through concerned strangers. The silence felt wrong, too still, too strategic. And then, on Thursday evening, my landlord called again. "Sienna," he said carefully, "your ex contacted the leasing office again." I exhaled sharply. "What now?" "He's claiming you're withholding his belongings," the landlord said, clearly annoyed. "He's threatening legal action unless you return them." I pinched the bridge of my nose. Everything he owns was delivered to him at apartment 304 3 weeks ago. I have photos. "That's what I told him," the landlord said. "He tried to argue that you kept designer items you bought him." Of course he did. "Do you still have the receipts?" the landlord asked hesitantly. "I already photographed them for my records," I said. "I'll forward everything." "Good," he replied, because he also claimed he had tenant rights and should still have access to your unit. I laughed. "Check the paperwork." "We did," he said. "He's nowhere on the lease, never paid $1 of rent, and has no legal standing." "He never paid rent," I echoed, "but he's convinced the world owes him a key." The landlord sighed. "We flagged his name. If he comes back, we'll handle it." And then, in the softest voice, I heard something rare. "You're handling this very well, Sienna." I thanked him and hung up. For the first time since the breakup, I felt tired in a peaceful way, not a drained way, like I was regaining pieces of myself one day at a time. But Evan still had one play left. Saturday afternoon, my mailbox held a letter with unfamiliar handwriting. I recognized the emotional weight before I even opened it. It was from his mother. I braced myself and read it on the kitchen counter. "Dear Sienna, you need to forgive my son. He made a mistake. Everyone deserves forgiveness. You are throwing away a good man because of your pride. Real relationships require patience and understanding. He was hurting and confused. He didn't mean to stay with that woman. He told me you made him feel judged and pressured." I stopped reading and let the paper fall slightly. Judged and pressured. Not cheating, not lying, not disappearing every weekend. My fault, of course. I kept reading. "Evan has been crying every night. He is staying with Mark because he has nowhere else to go. Please meet with him and talk things out. He's in pain. I know you still love him." Then came the turn I expected, but still felt stunned to read. "If you cared about him, you wouldn't abandon him during his lowest moment. That is cruel." Cruel. The mother of a son who lied to me for 3 months, lived at another woman's apartment, gave me an ultimatum, and then stalked me at work, was accusing me of cruelty. At the bottom, she'd written, "He said you were jealous and controlling. I should have listened sooner." I folded the letter neatly, placed it back in the envelope, and dropped it into my shred bin. 3 hours later, the universe delivered its comedic timing. A mutual friend, one of the few who'd bothered to ask me directly for my side, texted me, "Girl, you will not believe this tea. Evan's grand fallback plan, moving in with his coworker, had crumbled. Mark, the just friend, had finally snapped and told him he couldn't stay there anymore. Apparently, Evan had. Tried to get Mark to add him to his lease. Tried to get Mark to buy him groceries. Tried to get Mark to drive him to work. Tried to get Mark to loan him money for essentials. And worst of all, Mark's girlfriend found out Evan had been staying there and dumped Mark instantly. Turns out Mark wasn't gay. That was another lie they'd crafted in desperation. Their whole tangled web broke apart like wet paper. By the end of the week, Evan had moved back in with his parents, who were now furious that they had to pay for the consequences of his actions. And suddenly, nobody had the energy to harass me anymore. A month passed. The quiet that settled over my life felt sacred. I spent weekends reading, picked up old hobbies, started jogging again, rediscovered the feeling of waking up without dread pressing on my chest. No lies, no tracking a partner's movements, no late-night anxiety spirals, no emotional tugs of war. Just peace. Real peace. Then, one afternoon, I ran into him. I was walking into a coffee shop, scrolling through my phone, when someone stepped into my path. Sienna. I looked up. Evan. He looked worse than I expected. Dark circles under his eyes, tense jaw, clothes rumpled like he'd slept in them. A far cry from the polished man who used to leave my condo for his mysterious work nights. "Hi," I said, neutral. His Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed hard. "Can we talk?" "We are talking." He blinked, thrown. "I mean really talk, about us." "There is no us," I said. "There hasn't been for a month." He winced. "I know, but I miss you. I made a huge mistake." "You made multiple mistakes every weekend for 3 months," I corrected. "It wasn't cheating," he insisted. "How many times do I have to say it?" Doesn't matter, I said. You lied. Repeatedly. You hid things. You gaslit me. You gave me an ultimatum instead of honesty. It was complicated. No, I said gently. It was simple. You wanted something else. So you lied to keep both. He looked pained. Can we at least try again? I stepped past him toward the counter. You wanted done, I reminded him. You got done. That's cold, he whispered. That's honest, I said. Something you should try sometime. He stood there in silence as I ordered my coffee. When I walked out, he didn't follow. Someone later asked me if I felt bad for him. Honestly? No. Because the truth is, Evan's biggest mistake wasn't the lying. It wasn't the cheating. It wasn't the secrecy. His biggest mistake was assuming I needed him more than I needed my self-respect. He gave me an ultimatum. I took the exit. He lost a girlfriend. I gained my life back. The end wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a cliffhanger. It wasn't revenge. It was quiet, simple, clear. He had shown me who he was, and I believed him.